Friends and colleagues, have fun. Ladies and gentlemen, I was born in a tiny rural village of Madagascar in my grandmother's home. And my mother went through 72 hours of labor without any help from a skilled birth attendant. And I really wonder how we both survived. For that reason, I have so much respect for my mother, for my wife with us here today, and for all women across the world. Today's event touches me so personally and so profoundly. It's a great pleasure to speak to you about child survival and child development, because escaping from death is not enough. It's our responsibility as well to give our children the healthy lives they deserve and help them realize their full potential, physically, mentally, and socially. They should be the change agents in our communities, survive, thrive, and transform. Back in the year 2000, the world leaders gathered at the United Nations to shape a broad vision to fight poverty worldwide. That vision was translated into 8 Millennium Development Goals. We very recently celebrated the remarkable accomplishments of the MDGs. We reduced the mortality of children under 5 by more than half, meaning we brought down the number of deaths from 12.7 million children in 1990 to almost 6 million in 2015. Now, yes, these accomplishments were certainly remarkable, but much more remains to be done. We need not only to save the 6 million that continue to die every year, but also we need to support those who survive. That's true, more children are surviving. But those who survive persistent diarrhea and other recurrent diseases often suffer from long-term health impacts. And this can result in serious physical and cognitive deficiencies. Other than a miracle, I can't find any explanation how my mother and I survived my day of birth. But I needed more than a miracle to get through tough situations in life. I had a childhood hero, a real hero, and that was my late grandfather. I vividly remember those days. I used to sit on the back of his bicycle, and together we would ride 5-6 kilometers to the larger village where the dispensary was located. He got all my vaccinations completed. And every time I was sick, my grandfather brought me to see the doctor. I'm not sure these were real doctors, but to me, they were doctors. My grandfather was a very active Red Cross volunteer, similar to what we call today CHWs, community health workers. And he was a good friend for many doctors. That was a rare privilege for a peasant like him. When it came time for my studies, I followed my grandfather's steps, studied medicine, entered public health, and here I am with you today. Thank you very much for being with me. Thank you. Now, my gray hair reminds me that that story, my story, happened 50 years ago. That's half a century, guys. No joking. And yet, I still see children in many places in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, dying or suffering from malnutrition, stunted growth, learning difficulties as a result of repeated infections and diarrhea episodes. We all have seen in the videos. I have, just to remind you, I have the list of those 5 key interventions, simple solutions to fight diarrheal disease that are literally at our fingertips. So please help me count them. Number 1, wash your hands with soaps, dispose waste appropriately, and drink clean water. Number 2, get your children vaccinated. Kids, rotavirus vaccine is out there in most developing countries. Number 3, proper nutrition practices. That includes breastfeeding, exclusive breastfeeding during the first 6 months of your child's life. Number 4, give oral rehydration solution to save children from dehydration during the episode of diarrhea. And lastly, number 5, zinc treatment to boost their immune system. If we just implemented these 5 interventions together in a package, and they are integrated to each other, they will help prevent unnecessary deaths and alleviate the burden due to long-term consequences of those infections. I know any experienced practitioner in this room will say, Serge, that's easier said than done. And I do agree. However, we also have to recognize that, guys, this is not rocket science, right? We cannot afford to lose the momentum because 2030, that finish line for the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, is just 12 years ahead of us. More than ever, we need your voice to help further elevate these issues. So please join us. Make sure diarrheal disease gets the attention and awareness it deserves. We need you. Thank you very much.